Welcome to the Capital Raiser Show, Season 5, powered by the Family Office Club. I'm your new host, Weston Walker, and we interview only the best entrepreneurs and investment managers. Shout out to our sponsors, the Family Office Club, Capitalist Pro, and Invest Next. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Ed Connors. He is the co-founder of Gold's Gym and the author of his new book, The Three Musketeers. Ed, let's get into your backstory of how you bought and scaled Gold's Gym.
In 1979, I bought a single Gold's Gym in Santa Monica with two bodybuilding partners, two bodybuilders who were partners. And after about 19 months, we saw that not everybody could come to the Mecca, so we thought we would bring the Mecca to the people by franchising the gym, because people recognize Gold's Gym as sort of a hardcore, serious fitness for everybody. And at the time, it was called a licensing operation because we didn't have a business plan. We had a brand. We were charging a fee, but we weren't. There was no manual at the time. That was when I opened the first Gold's Gym franchise license at the time in 1980. That was 45 years ago. That was the first gym license in America. And over the next 25 years, we grew it to 704 locations.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell us about how you scaled your team. Obviously, that takes, a team for each location specifically and someone that's passionate about the gym. What did you look for in those employees that drove the company to scale?
We looked for people with passion for fitness. I was involved in 37 Gold Gym franchises myself personally with partners. And I looked for, people that loved working out and wanted to help people and basically taught them the business. So, it wasn't really, we were looking for people with a great deal of money. That back then you could do a gym pretty cheaply. My initial gyms were capitalized at $100,000. So an employee could buy 1% of the gym for $1,000. And people would say, well, that's nothing. Why even bother? But some of those people who did that are now multimillionaires. A thousand, I used to always say 1% of a dollar is a lot more than 100% of nothing. And so even a few percentage points could that income could pay your rent back in the day. So it was a good investment. And I would have several employees, maybe a half a dozen, who were all investors in the gym. And they would basically watch each other. And since I was a remote owner, I think it cut down on theft and other shenanigans that might have gone on had I had just one other partner.
Sure. Yeah, and is that how you finance the gyms is through bodybuilding and or through bodybuilders and partnering with them, or was it more banks? Obviously, you
Mm.
bought the first location, but then you had to expand. So how did you finance those
The banks
transactions?
were pretty much worthless. So it was actually raising money from investors, often workers, to do the gym. Because back then the gyms were a cash business. So the banks were very suspicious of them, about those kind of businesses, and they still are. So it wasn't until the late 90s or well mid 90s when EFT came into electronic fund transfer came into play, and that made the gyms a lot more legitimate because banks or investors could see the monthly income coming in on a regular basis. In fact, I could never have sold Gold's Gym the first time in 1999 without that existing because the private equity people would not touch a business that depended so much on cash.
Mm. Yeah, and what were the strategies that I guess grew each location and its profits? Because that's a big deal in franchising, is getting the owners of those franchises to, see the cash that's coming in and be motivated in the business side of it. So what were strategies that you implemented in each location that drew the profits
Well,
up?
unlike say the car business or a mall, uh, wanted to find a location in a city that was far away from other existing gyms. I mean, there weren't a lot of gyms back then, but you didn't want to go head to head. And this this came as a surprise to some of the owners, some of the franchisees who basically went out on their own and decided to go confront the competition in town by going across the street. But that you're just dividing up the market. Uh, so I would try and find locations that had a lot of, people within a certain radius. And that was hard to do back then because the demographic information wasn't available like it is now. Now it's incredible what you can find out from your real estate broker regarding the demographics. But I looked for a certain household income level and a density of population and a location that was good. I did not, I write in my book. It's not location, 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 because once you've found a gym, you'll go back there on a regular. It's got to be convenient. It's got to be not a long drive. So to pay top dollar for a location that has maybe great visibility from the road is not necessarily the best thing to go with, because you might be really overpaying for a site if you put it a block away. Could be just as successful as long as it was convenient. I hope that makes sense. I don't.
No, of course. Yeah, and a lot of members, they bring their friends in the community to the gym, and that's all about branding. You built the Gold's Gym brand around a community of sorts, and in the 80s and the 90s, it was it was blowing up in the
Mhm.
bodybuilding community. And what drove you to? I mean, I guess what was behind the Gold's Gym brand that made it so attractive to
We built a real
bodybuilders?
community in the Gold's Gym in Venice, and that's important for anyone with a business to build loyal support in their hometown with what they're doing. And we had when we sold in 2004, we had 12,000 members, and Venice has a population back then of 100,000. So we were definitely popular. Uh, we were also in the magazines. Back then, the magazines were the social media of the day, and we gave the photographers free access to the gym. We would give top athletes or celebrities our clothing for free, and obviously free membership. So that, one of the chapters in my book is give to get, and you have to, I think, give away or help people financially that way, if you want to get your name out there. I guess it's no different than what Nike does with on a big scale with their athletes. And but we didn't pay anybody for all that free publicity.
Sure. Yeah, and you worked really close with these bodybuilders, even letting them stay
Oh,
at your houses
mm.
in California. And tell us, I mean, what are some cool stories of bodybuilders and big names coming through your homes and you training them, feeding them, and letting them use
Well,
your
the
gyms?
biggest name would be John Cena, who I met in the Gold's Gym parking lot in '99, and I approached him and said, have you ever thought about pro wrestling? And he said it would be his dream. And I said, but he said, there's no way I could ever get into that. And I said, well, I could show you how. So I encouraged him to go back to Massachusetts, finish school, finish college, and then come out to California, and I would help him get started. And 18 months later, he had a supplement contract. But back in the early days of Gold's Gym, the wrestling world was very closely tied with our up and coming franchises. They were popping up all over the U.S., and the WWE, Vince McMahon, would have matches in those cities. And often, of course, the athletes would train at the local Gold's Gym and then go into the gym wearing a Gold's Gym T-shirt and rip it off in the ring. It was a torn T-shirt, but great publicity for Gold's Gym. So it was so much so that Vince thought he should own us. So he tried to buy Gold's Gym in the early days, and we became friends. And
Oh, for
over the
sure.
next 25 years, I sent him a lot of talent. But
Yeah, and you talked about your relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger and CBum as
well,
well.
they were Arnold didn't. He was loyal to Joe Gold, so he trained mainly at World Gym. But we were friends, and he came to the gym occasionally. Uh, he owned World Gym for a couple of years, and I remember him saying, "Ed, how come your gym is so busy and mine's empty?" And I told him it was the stereo system, and he laughed, thinking I was making a joke. But World Gym had no music in it; it was like a church. And we had, the sound system was one of the most important pieces of equipment in any of my gyms. And this is the day before people wore, headsets and phone, things in their ear. So that helped also create that sense of community. And that's unfortunately that's missing now from a lot of the gyms.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
earbuds and the headphones.
Again, it's a different world.
Not
Change is
much
the one
community there.
constant. That's why I'm working on a new kind of gym because what worked in the 80s.
Yeah, tell us about the gym in Vegas that you're
It
working
would
on.
employ more virtual training. In other words, you would not. I think studies have shown that 80% of Americans would go to a gym and work out if they knew what to do. And with virtual technology nowadays, we can tell people, we can show people easily what to do, and they don't have to be intimidated. So the strength area, the cardio area, the yoga stretching area, my new facility in Las Vegas would have virtual instructors of some sort, holographic instructors for the stretching or cardio, huge audio visual for the cardio, the bikes, and then strength machines that would take you through the workout and basically help you through the entire all the motions without you knowing what you're doing. I mean, you're it's just taking you through it so that you can't possibly make a mistake or overtrain or not exercise the proper muscle. And
Interesting. So is that the only location that you plan on
no,
having this at, or will this be
I
a
would
national
franchise
thing?
this after a year. Yeah, with franchising, it helps to
Awesome.
basically have a proven model that you can show investors. So I would franchise a slimmed down version of this after a year.
Yeah, and talk about your relationships with investors. How do you build those and nurture investor relationships and raise capital for your projects? Because you raised early on and you're still raising capital today. So what are the top strategies that you use for finding investors and raising the capital?
Well, back when I sold the gym, it was mainly just uh, contacting as many people as I could find. There was no when I started looking for an investor in 1995 to buy Gold's Gym because we were losing gym owners to Town Sports International and 24 Hour Fitness. It's basically cheaper to buy a gym, an existing gym, than start a new one from scratch. So we were losing some great operators who were wanting to retire and cash out, and I, I, I spent 4.5 years trying to find the right private equity group. I remember I kept track. I sent out 175 packages. Our FedEx bill hit 15 grand a month most months. So I was communicating with a lot of people. I tell people you just got to have as many irons in the fire as you can because you never know who's real and who isn't. So that's my advice, I guess, to your audience. If don't rely on it, one or two people. Just keep, shaking, shaking the trees, or just, talking to people. Like you at our conference, because it's hard to know who's really not only real, but who also shares your vision. And I found some people who were passionate about. They saw the world of fitness as I see it right now, which is it's kind of a mess, or it's COVID had done a lot to really hurt the fitness industry.
Yeah, and it's kind of going on social media as well. You see bodybuilders building their own brands on social media instead of having to travel all the way to California or Vegas.
That's a big,
Um,
yeah.
so how do you see that
That's
pivoting?
that's
Yeah, how do you see that
well,
pivoting to
that's the big
social media?
difference now. And I mean, back in when I owned Gold's Gym with Pete and Krowski and Tim Kimber for between 79 and 2004, you basically had to go to the Mecca. You had to go to Los Angeles to get famous, to get known. And nowadays you can do it from your home, using your phone. There's no, it's an entirely different world in terms of gaining publicity for yourself. People like Chris Bumstead, but I don't know how many millions of followers, but again, he's in Canada. And I encouraged him to come to LA actually and get in the entertainment industry, but he's content. He's done a great job with what he's got going there, and his name, his brand was enough to really propel a supplement company into the stratosphere.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and he's I guess what would be the top tactics that you see bodybuilders use on social media to help them grow their following? Because, C-Bomb grew to over 20
Mm-hmm.
million followers. Sam Sulek grew to, the mid-teens, millions of followers. I mean, what do you see them doing differently than the people that are, kind of in the tens of thousands of followers?
I think it's harder, first off, to get uh, followers on Instagram now than it was. Um, so it's more of a challenge. So I guess I would uh, tell people who are really frustrated that it is a different world. Um, but I think you've got to make material that's instructional or informational, but and also entertaining. And that's what I'm trying to do actually with my new gym concept is have I'm trying to educate uh, users, but also entertain them while they're working out. So I think it's that same principle that applies. Is that um, so many of these posts that people do, it's just kind of Me Too videos or two pictures. You've got to
Mm,
show them, teach them something, or make it funny or entertaining.
something different. Yeah,
And
because you're competing
yeah,
with these other posts
right,
that are
right,
entertaining, and you also have to attract the right audience that wants to
hmm,
learn about bodybuilding and wants to grow in their, you know, in
right,
in their
hmm,
space. So, yeah, going back to your communication with the private equity groups when you sold, we interview
hmm.
private equity firms that, attract deal flow, that attract capital. I mean, what were you looking for in the private equity firm that you worked with to sell
Well,
your
we were
company?
looking for integrity, and that was basically hard to find in that group. I mean, they were, you'd be again. It's like you pursuing investors. You meet with them and you waste a lot of time, energy, and money, and then they basically lowball you at the end or something. Or maybe in your case, they want too sweet a deal, and so I found a lot of sharks in the water. There aren't too many people that I really got to like, but the Brockway Moran group out of Boca Raton, Florida, was terrific. And even then, when we found them, because they were in Florida and they weren't New York or L.A., they were somewhat suspect. I think again that's the crazy world where this is back in 1999, where I guess Florida was seen as somewhat a source of questionable money, but they were as legit as anyone on the East Coast or West Coast. And that's another thing I learned is that I do think more deals are coming out of the East Coast than say the West Coast. Um, so New York, Boston, um, Miami, those are still hot spots for funding compared to say the Midwest or the West.
Yeah, and you see a lot of New
Mm. Right.
Yorkers that are in finance moving
Yeah.
to Miami and
Mm.
Fort Lauderdale area, especially
Right.
Palm Beach as well. And
Hmm.
also
Yeah.
influencers in Miami are rapidly growing. So yeah, so what do you see? I guess you're more
Hmm.
on the West Coast, but how do you see the East Coast growing in the bodybuilding space?
Well, just there aren't really many good gyms in New York City. Um, there again, it's all a lot of it is due to the real estate, which is still very expensive in New York. And in Miami now is, I think, the fastest growing city in America. So the real estate there has gotten pricey, and that's a key component of a gym. Um, Las Vegas, is still a reasonable market for, and I think it's a a new city. LA is somewhat dead right now, but the real estate market is still, I think, unrealistic or high. Um, so I would avoid areas where the real estate people aren't really being realistic about what the future or what's happening right now. I mean, too many. I think there are just too many greedy landlords. Um, Half of them don't get it. They don't understand the world we're in right now. Um,
Yeah, and there's not as
Go
many
ahead.
trades going
Yeah.
on. There's not as many
Right.
properties being sold. And that's a big component of your gym is finding that right space for the gym, the right size, and getting a good price on it so the
Right.
operators
And,
can
and that's
profit.
the most important time uh, future owners have. I tell them, this is the time where you have to just wait. I mean, I would meet so many entrepreneurs who had it in the back of their mind that they want to have a gym open in 3 months or 5 months. But I said, no, you've got to slow down and make sure that building that you're going into is the right one at the right price. Don't shop around and be prepared to walk away. Because again, I think half the landlords in America or in the U.S. right now don't get it. They're just being, they're not being realistic. Um, and a gym it could be a great tenant. Um, so yeah, it's a scary time because after COVID, the gyms um, reopened, but they didn't have the full membership back. But the landlords wanted full rent. So I see landlords now suing gym owners, and some of them are going to default, and that's going to, basically uh, send shockwaves through the banking community for the landlords that aren't as well financed or don't have as much in the way of resources. So it's this is why it's again, I think a particularly dangerous time to jump into something without doing all your homework.
Yeah, it's an interesting time and you see
Yeah, yeah,
people waiting
yeah,
as well for the
right.
market to come down. Do you see any opportunities in the current market?
Again, I there's so much uncertainty. I wouldn't know. I couldn't give any. It's just so crazy. Every day is yeah. It's wild. It's just. I mean, I guess the best advice would be just don't sell anything. Just sit on what you have. I think Warren Buffett is the only. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so I'm a big Buffett fan. But I think I saw recently he's the only billionaire in the top 25 that's made any money in the last few weeks, and he's just kind of sitting in place, and he sold out a lot of stuff early before I think before the election or at the beginning of the election.
Yeah, and he has a large portion in
Yeah,
treasuries as
huge.
well. Just waiting,
Yeah,
waiting for opportunities.
yeah. I would love to see someone like him buy Boeing and kind of as his last what's the word, his last hurrah, buy Boeing and get it in shape. I mean, unfortunately, Boeing was headed up by one of these people from the Jack Welch GE era who really were very destructive. I'm not a big Jack Welch fan. I mean, he was so overrated, and he ruined. They don't even make light bulbs anymore, and they invented them. So yeah, again, I guess that gets back to who you do business with or who you trust. Look for people with integrity and yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and going back to Gold's Gym, obviously we're talking about real estate now. You revolutionized the gym industry from the ground up. I
Hmm.
mean, bodybuilding was not definitely not as much of a thing as it is now, and you were kind of the spearhead of this industry. So the gym industry is kind of it's matured,
Hmm.
right? You see much more bodybuilders than there previously were. If someone were looking to revolutionize a different industry, how would you start in that path?
I think you have to realize what may or try and anticipate what's going to change, or what more importantly, what's going to stay the same. The the bodybuilding has expanded. I don't like where it's at right now, but it's and I had to tone this down in my book. My publisher asked me to do that because there are a lot. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of men and women out there now making a living training people. That did not exist in the beginning, and that's wonderful. I mean, they're helping a lot of people lead healthier and better lives, probably live longer. So, you know, far be it from me to downplay the all the different categories of competition they have now, but I think you could give. I just saw a funny. I think it was on 60 Minutes, an episode on bananas, a baseball league. Are you aware of that, Weston?
I haven't seen
Yeah,
this, no.
Google bananas. But here somebody has looked at baseball, which I think is probably one of the most boring sports.
Oh, I have
Yeah.
seen this.
So there's
Yeah.
somebody who basically thought outside the box, and I guess he's got more fans and doing quite well. He basically reinvented baseball to make it more attractive, more interesting, more entertaining. So he's kind of done to baseball what I hope to do with fitness. So there's an example.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
says more
Well,
fast paced.
Google, go to YouTube and Google, I don't know, CBS 60 Minutes bananas, and it's a fascinating story. And I wasn't aware of any of this, but it made me want to actually go to a baseball game for the first time.
Yeah, it's kind of like golf. It's pretty slow
Golf is,
paced, and they're trying to make it
I
more
find
entertaining.
golf a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't compare it to golf. I think it's a yeah. That's I guess you could think about it, but at least golf is it's fast. I think it's somewhat fast paced compared to baseball, but anyway, it's 18 holes. It's yeah. It's so there's an example, great example of and I guess we reinvented fitness over the year. When I bought the gym in '79 with Pete and Tim, there wasn't one bike in the gym, and I saw people riding bicycles on Venice Beach, and I thought, well, that would be a good thing to bring indoors. So we pioneered bikes in the gym. We didn't call it cardio theater. We just called it bikes in the gym. But yeah, that was so we were not afraid to bring in things like that. And again, even with the clothing, I would see fads on Venice Beach, people wearing certain kind of crazy outfits. That then I thought, well, that would be a fun garment to try. And we had amazing hits with things like the baggy pants you've probably seen. The people they now look like
Yeah.
pajamas. And if you wore a matching top and bottom, it would certainly look like a pair of pajamas. But that was a hit. That was a major hit back in the day.
Did you have to do a lot of testing before you found those
No,
hits?
just clothing is. I mean, that's one thing about clothing, say, versus supplements. It does take some money to get into it, but that was back in the day when the U.S. had a very good clothing supply chain. Everything was coming from the southeast, and unfortunately, all those mills are gone, but or most of them, I should say, and it's all overseas. But it was a great time to invent stuff because you could get it made in a few days and then test it out. And we had a pro shop in the gym that was doing over $150,000 a month in clothing. So that's a significant store to test things in.
Oh, for clothing, that's quite a bit.
Uh,
Yeah, so one last question, Ed, before we get out on time here. What was the best piece of advice that someone gave to you?
well, I think it's sort of in my book is I'll hold up the cover here, but it's dare to dream. You've got to take risk. You've got to work hard, and you've got to never look back, but hopefully learn from your mistakes. The I've read a lot of biographies in writing my book, and most of the authors have come up with the same theory I have. That life is half about luck and half what you do with it. So once you think you get lucky, then you need to execute. You need to persevere and make that luck happen. And a lot of times you think you're unlucky, and who knows, that may have been the best luck you've ever had by that missed opportunity. Oh, sorry, my phone is going off with Alexa. Um, anyway, no, so basically 50-50, luck and perseverance in equal measure. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Sure. And you mentioned, you sent out hundreds of postcards to
Mm.
private equity firms, investors, and making a lot of conversations in those. And we will put the link of your book in the description for investors or anyone that's interested in that. And also for investors that might be interested in funding or talking to you about your Vegas project, how can they reach you?
I'm on Instagram as Jim Architect, GYM Architect, or Connors Ed, CONNORSED at gmail.com. And
Awesome.
yeah, I loved it. I enjoy communicating with people.
Cool. And we'll put your contact in the description as well. And Ed,
Thank,
thank you for coming
thank you,
on.
Weston.
Really appreciate it.